Welcome back, our dear viewers. As we promised at the beginning of the show, we are going today to talk about the latest developments in the political race for the presidential elections in the United States between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And we are going to talk also about the repercussions of the Orlando shooting that took place last week on the race for the presidential elections in the United States. To shed more light on the issue, we are very much delighted to have with us in the studio the former Deputy Foreign Minister and the former Egyptian envoy to the UN in Geneva, Ambassador Wafaa Basseem. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ambassador Basseem. And let's start by your opinion or your view of the electoral process in the United States so far.
Well, this is the 58th presidential elections that are taking place in the United States, and it is supposed at the end of the race on the 8th of November 2016 that we have a president and a vice president. Now you can almost say that the two candidates that are now the candidates of the Democratic Party and of the Republican Party, namely Ms. Hillary Clinton and Mr. Donald Trump, are almost shoulder to shoulder. It goes up, depends on the days, on the event, but with not a big difference. The last polls, a couple of days ago, that have been published, they showed that Ms. Clinton is at 47%, Mr. Trump is at 40%, you have 5% undecided, 2% that do not know yet if at all they are going to participate in the elections. You've just mentioned the events in Orlando.
Yes.
And this is one example of what might change the polls at a certain point of time. The social media has helped very much in displaying the points of view of the two candidates when it came to the Orlando events. While Mr. Trump was outspoken with very strong words, once again, against Muslim foreigners and attacking the actual administration as a weak administration, unable to protect America's value and to portray America as, or the USA, as a strong player or the strongest player on the political arena. Ms. Clinton was more, was quieter, more pondered. Nevertheless, she condemned the act. She did not condemn Muslims or Arabs or foreigners. What she said is that was a threat and a major threat to national security, to the American interests, whether home or abroad. On the other hand, that there must be a better policy on immigration without banning the immigrants. And the third thing, she came back to her favorite theme, which is control of weapons and use of weapons in the United States among individuals. She believes that there must be a code that would prevent citizens from acquiring weapons from the supermarket, if one could say so, which is not the position of Donald Trump. Nevertheless, she assured that she is an ally of LGBT and that they have the right to live without any discrimination and in full security.
Ambassador Basseem, we cannot deny that Mr. Trump, whenever the opportunity is there for him, he's attacking the immigrants, he's attacking Muslims. So how do you see the stance of Mr. Trump regarding these issues?
Let's first look at the background of Mr. Trump. He's a self-made
Indeed.
billionaire. Yes, his father, he inherited a big wealth from his father, but he far developed this wealth using everything, the market economy, the strengths, the power, and if you see of the kind of investment he made his wealth from, it's hotels, casinos, trading in everything, starting from neckties, going even to bottled mineral water.
Everything.
Yes, and he has a very interesting, even private life.
Indeed, yes.
He has no political experience whatsoever. He just came in because he decided that he wants to go into politics, to become the president, with the slogan, let's get America back to its greatness, or let's make America as great as it used to be. If you notice, he did not need to collect lots of funds from donors for his campaign. He self-financed his own campaign.
Of course, he's a billionaire.
Yes, he's less than $50 million, $47 million actually for his campaign. He has a very strong stand against, I wouldn't say Muslim or Arabs only. He has a strong stand against Hispanics, which are representing Hispanics. Those are from Latin America, Mexico, Puerto Rico, which represent a big portion of the American population. He's the one who said, I want to make a wall to separate Mexico from the USA, because Mexico is the land of all evils, from drugs to killers to weapons to everything. He has this strong wordings against everybody and against everything, and he believes that being strong should be the label of the American people. He has strong words against China. He has strong words against Korea and Japan. He doesn't want the US to continue protecting South Korea and Japan. He wants them to have their own nuclear weapons, and so on and so forth. So he has that strong language, portraying himself as the strong man, in contradiction with what he calls the weak American administration, Democratic Party, and so on and so forth. It appeals to some, to those who are still living the American dream of the first superpower, of the cowboy of the world, and so on and so forth.
Okay. Ambassador Basseem, you just gave us the background regarding Donald Trump. What about Hillary Clinton? I mean, this is the second time she's running for presidential post, and she has, if we may say, she has some sort of experience when it comes to campaigning for the presidential race. She has been First Lady before, she has been in the White House. She knows everything going on inside the White House when she was the First Lady, when Bill Clinton was the president. And perhaps she has an insight regarding the politics and the behind the scenes, if we may say, going on in the US administration. So how do you see her? Could you give us some sort of background?
Well, she's the antidote of Mr. Donald Trump. As you said, she has been a First Lady, which means that she has been experiencing campaigns behind her husband, beside her husband, until he reached the White House. She has been herself a senator. She has been, she ran running for mayor for New York. She ran, but she didn't win. She tried before to be president, and she comes from the same party, the Democratic Party, as President Obama. And they were neck to neck almost. And she was the Secretary of State, and what a Secretary of State. She is a Secretary of State that has been around the world. She has visited 122 countries during her tenure of post. She was behind, or she voted for the invasion of Iraq, though she sort of distanced herself from what has happened after the invasion. And when came time to vote for withdrawal of the US troops from Iraq, she voted for this too. She has been voting for the bombarding Libya, or the military intervention in Libya. She played a big role as well as far as Afghanistan is concerned, and how it was managed, the conflict, until the withdrawal of the American troops and let's say the international alliance there. Let's not forget her position, which forged the American position as far as what has been called the Arab Spring. Supporting, coming and visiting the countries which have seen the change, the dramatic change, such as Tunis, Egypt, Bahrain. She was involved in that too. So she has definitely a much deeper and wider political experience, whether on foreign policy and even internal policy. She has a clear vision of what she wants to do internally: women's rights, health care programs. She wants to improve on what President Obama has done, poverty, climate change, economic development, because she believes that Democratic Party is not there only to benefit the wealthiest, but it has to take care of the poor as well. Yes, she has much more experience, but the supporters of Mr. Trump are saying that because he's not from Washington, he's sort of clean and would have a fresh look with new eyes that are not very much influenced by the old machinery of Washington.
Ambassador Basseem, since we were talking about Clinton and her activities concerning the Arab region and the Arab Spring during her tenure as Secretary of State, from your point of view, how do you see the stance of both candidates, Mr. Trump and Mrs. Clinton, regarding the developments in the Arab region, if any of them will come as presidents?
Well, as you know, the foreign policy of the United States is not made only by the president. You will have at least 3 or 4 other institutions that are having an impact on decision making and decision taking in the US. You have the Congress with the 2 chambers. You have the National Security Advisor. You have the State Department, and of course the presidency or the White House. There are others, of course, the major think tanks, the major advisors to the president, whoever he is, the Pentagon from a point of view, and of course the different services such as the CIA and the FBI. Let's not forget, any candidate, any president would look first at the interests of the United States, politically, economically, and of course military. Let's not forget that Israel's security is a priority for any American president, and both candidates have clearly said that in different occasions,
yes.
and that they will continue protecting Israel. They will continue providing weaponry system that will ensure that Israel is way before, coming before or ranking before any country in the region. And any threat to the security of Israel is a threat to the security of the U.S. They are also very interested, of course, in continuing campaigning for establishing their own model of democracy in the region, in the Middle East. They have an interest in combating terror, and they rely in the region on their allies and their friends. ISIS, Daesh, is among their top priority, both presidents. Security in the Gulf is very important. The fact that Iran should never acquire a nuclear weapon, and they both will vigilantly observe the agreement that have been reached with Iran is fully complied with. Libya is a major concern, but the U.S. is very cautious about getting itself involved directly there. On one side, also, you will find that Donald Trump wants, in exchange of the protection and the assistance of the U.S. to the countries of the region, that they also have to be, as he said, nice to the United States. So he doesn't want too much slogans or attacking to the policies of the United States. He's ready to cooperate with the president of Russia, with Mr. Putin, while we will find that Ms. Clinton is more into we will be treating each other as equal. We won't let Russia step on our toes or hamper or threaten our interests. We are ready to cooperate as long as they are ready also to cooperate in return. So the Middle East, the Arab world, and here I'll come to Egypt as well, who has a strategic long relation with the U.S.
Indeed.
I was just coming to this question, Ambassador Wafaa, because I was just going to ask you about, if we're talking about the elements or the countries affecting the presidential race in the United States, how the candidates see Egypt, because as you mentioned, Egypt and the U.S. share long historic relationships or relations, and it's not only political, it's political, it's economic, it's cultural. So how do you see the stance of both candidates?
Military.
It's military, of course.
Of course. No one in the States or outside the States would deny the Egypt in the region and the importance of that role. And don't forget, we're a big country in terms of resources, human resources, military standards, in terms of education, universities, cultural resources. We do have our difficult times, and we do not deny it. Nevertheless, we remain the main player in the region. If you want peace, if you want stability, if you want a good influence on the countries of the region, you have to look to Egypt. Sometimes the US think, or some of its politicians think, that you can replace Egypt by another
state
power, regional power. They think Israel sometimes is, but of course Israel is lacking a very important thing, which is the support
of neighboring
the
countries.
regions,
Yes,
of the
course.
neighbors.
Yes.
So it's an isolated island. No matter how much you inject power there, it won't be able to do the same
Of course.
role. Turkey, they have tried a bit with Turkey, but again here there is a problem for different reasons, but Turkey has its own problems, and its own priorities are within the European region, with an eye on the Middle East, dreaming of returning to the Caliphate or the Ottoman Empire that they never forgot. And it's always a nostalgia for the old time, without looking into the de facto
current situation.
elements and the current situation. Of course, Iran, though a very strong regional power, cannot replace Egypt for obvious reasons. So they have an interest to have good relations with Egypt. Sometimes, of course, the two sides do not see eye to eye to the same things. Now is usually the last year of an American administration is a sort of standstill. President Sisi has presented an initiative for peace in the Middle East, backed by the French and some Europeans. To here, we haven't seen no warmth, no cold feelings from the US, but they still say they believe in a lasting, long solution based on two states, and we still stick to that. What is good is that we resumed the strategic dialogue at the level of ministers. Our foreign minister was in Washington, and they had a session of that dialogue, which has been suspended for some time, since January 2011. Now it's a situation of wait and see. We won't see real, clear policy towards the Middle East, but next year, January, February, after the inauguration speech of the president, whoever he is, and the interaction that would take place. A good thing is that the military cooperation has resumed.